Hello and welcome to the Viking Home Companion with another story from the good old days. Now, this story actually deals with a not funny subject, even though there were some funny moments involved in the situation. This was just about as serious a situation as you can possibly get. 1 year at Pennsic, which was now 6 years ago, I had a heart attack at Pennsic on the field. And there are some very interesting parts to that. It was very ironic in a way, because that year was my 50th birthday. My birthday was in April. But because of my conditions, I have psoriatic arthritis and fibromyalgia, I don't get to fight nearly as often as I would like. If I can put my armor on once a month, I'm having a good day. So there's no way that I could do what a typical person would do when it comes to their birthday celebration. A lot of fighters in the SCA will have a day where they take on as many people as they are years old. And so for me, that would have been 50 people. Not possible for me to do in one day. So my former knight, Earl Joffrey of Griffinhold, suggested to me that what I do instead is spread it out throughout the year. And I took his suggestion and I expanded on it a bit, and I created what I called my Quest for 50. Now, the idea of the Quest for 50 is that I would ask 50 people to join me in celebrating my 50th year of life. Remember what I said about irony? And so, throughout the year, I did. I would have these fights with people. Now, what I did was, rather than make it a single fight, since I was spreading it out anyway, I made it a bout of 3 passes. So basically, 3 total fights. This wasn't a best of 3, it was just 3 fights with that person. And I started doing that throughout the year. Now, there's a number of my friends. I've been in the SCA since 1981, so I have a lot of friends, and I spent most of that time in the West Kingdom, California. So most of my oldest friends are all from there. And since I now lived back in Pennsylvania, I didn't get to see most of them very often, and I certainly didn't get to fight most of them very often. Aside from just the fact I couldn't fight very often because of my conditions, was they just weren't around, and I couldn't make a trip out to California. So I had arranged to fight some of them back at Pennsic, because some of them come back for that. And there's an area that is allowed for singles fights and classes as opposed to the main battlefield where a lot of the war is going on. So on this day, I arranged to fight several people, and one of them was Duke Frederick of Holland. Now, Duke Frederick is one of the founders of the SCA. He's one of the people who was there at the original party that gave birth to the SCA. And I've known him since I joined in 1981, and he's always been a great friend. And I know that he was getting on in years and wasn't going to be fighting for much longer, and I absolutely wanted him to be part of my Quest for 50. So all of these bouts with people are recorded, including this one from Duke Frederick. So I had fought 3, 4, 5 other people. I don't remember the exact count off the top of my head. And then Frederick was there and available, and so he came out. And we had a great set of passes. It was actually a blast. The first one, and the first part of the video, is actually each of us playing the "I'm old, slow, and tired" bit. And of course, neither one of us is buying it. We're just using the words to ham it up a little bit. So we finally mix it up, and we're having a pretty good time. We have to stop at one point because I believe he had a gauntlet failure. One of his straps broke, and we had to fix it. And then we got restarted, and we had 3 really great passes. And then it was over, and I took off my helmet, I set it down, and I went over to tell another friend of mine from the West Kingdom that it was his turn, Viscount Sir Geoffrey Scott. And I find him over where he's at another challenge area. I tell him it's his turn. I go back to where I had put my helmet, and as I'm walking back, I'm starting to feel a little bit of tightness in my chest. And I'm thinking to myself, as most people seem to do when we have these kinds of events, that, well, you know, I've really exerted myself and I'm not in that great a shape because I can't fight very often and I don't get a lot of exercise. It's hot, I'm dehydrated, and so I'm making all these excuses as I get over to where my helmet is. And it hurts a little more when I get there and I finally just lay down next to my helmet. And then the pain not only intensifies, it spreads up my neck into my jaw and down into my arms and shoulders, and that's when I realize, yes, I am having a serious event. And so I wave my hand around, I call out for help. Now, the thing is that it was a good thing that I had the heart attack there at Penzic when and where I did. And that's because I'm single, I live alone, and if I'd have had the heart attack at home, I would not have gotten help as fast as I did. Even if I had been able to call 911, how long is it going to take for somebody to get to me? How long is it going to take for them to get into the house? And depending on where I'm at the house when they get here, how long is it going to take for them to find me? Well, the thing about Penzic is, we have medical personnel on standby because we're expecting people to get hurt. You know, the typical things. You know, sprains, tears, broken bones, concussions, all of these types of things are going to happen. And so we do have medical personnel there. We have at least 1 or 2 ambulances that are on standby at the event. But we also have members that are medical professionals. And while they're not allowed necessarily to treat somebody, they can be there to help get someone out of his armor, get him stable, check his vitals and stuff to give that information to the EMTs when they arrive. So I'm calling out for help. A couple of people are, boom, right there. And the first aid station is right there. And the first 3 people that get to me are an ER doctor, a trauma nurse, and a cardiac nurse. So, again, while they can't do much directly, they certainly can't give me any kind of medication. They get me out of my armor, they get me stable, they're checking my vitals. The thing is, though, the EMTs were only on the other side of the battlefield, and so the ambulance with the EMTs gets to me in like 3 minutes. So they get me loaded up, they get me into the ambulance. Now, I apparently was not necessarily the most cooperative of patients, but at the same time, they didn't care so much because they were getting a response. What they were doing is they were asking me a series of questions, which any of you first responders are going to know. And I answer all of their questions. And I don't really lose consciousness, but I am so focused on the pain that I'm not aware of anything that's going on around me until they get my attention. And they ask me all the same questions all over again. And my response was typically, I already answered those questions. Either give me something for the pain or leave me alone. So they get me to the hospital very quickly. It was not all that far away. And they take me straight through the ER into the OR. They bypass the ER entirely. Straight into the OR, and I'm not conscious of a lot that's going on around me. Once again, it's not that I'm out cold, it's that I'm focused on the pain. And then they gave me something to put me out. They went in and they did what they needed to do. I ended up with a stent, an angioplasty and a stent. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up in recovery, and it still hurts, which I'm told is absolutely normal. But I'm alternating between begging them to give me something for the pain and threatening them if they don't give me something for the pain. But the thing was, throughout all of this, from the moment they picked me up, my blood pressure was so low that they didn't want to give me any kind of a painkiller, because that can lower your blood pressure, and it was already dangerously low. So it took a little while, but then finally my cardiologist came in. He's not only the cardiologist that's continuing to treat me, he was the surgeon that performed the operation, and he apparently felt I was stable enough. They gave me the painkiller, and it was night and day. Boom. I went from intense pain and unfocused on everything else going around to me to all the pain was gone, and I'm totally awake and coherent. So the long and short of this is that I ended up just 2 days later back at Penzic. Now, no, I was not putting on my armor and going out to fight anybody. I was under pretty severe restrictions. All I was allowed to do was basically sit in camp and be sociable, but that was it. I was up, around, and mobile 2 days later. So my thanks goes out to everyone involved, the people that got to me quickly when I said I needed help, to the volunteers at our aid station that got to me immediately, to the EMTs and the ambulance that got to me so quickly and got me to the hospital, to my cardiologist and his staff for being able to do what they did. Because if none of that had happened or had not happened as quickly as it did, I might not be here at all. So I still count this as a good old days story, because I'm still here to talk about it, and I can still see the humor and the irony in some of what happened. Yashur, you betcha.